Hello, we're going to be taking another political quiz today. This one is the 2020 political quiz on isidewith.com. National security issues. Should the president be able to authorize military force against Al Qaeda without congressional approval? So this one is tricky. I feel like there maybe should be some circumstances where that's allowed. But honestly, if you were to try to peg me for specifics, I wouldn't be able to tell you very well. In general, I think no, and there's not really a good answer here, so I'm going to go with no. This is maybe, I mean, I can't say, like, considering I don't know that well, I'm going to say this is less important, but not least important. Should the U.S. assassinate suspected terrorists in foreign countries? I don't see why the U.S. would have to do that. We could have the countries that they're in do that. Just pass along the info. Yes, but only if there is undeniable evidence they are planning to attack our country. Yes, if there is undeniable evidence they've committed an attack against our country. Captured and given a fair trial. Capture, interrogate. With capture, sometimes it doesn't. You can't. Like, you may be able to assassinate someone but not be able to kill, but not be able to capture. You may be able to assassinate someone but not be able to capture them, because of things like snipers and drone strikes, right? I'm not gonna click on. I mean, I'll try to read more stances, but there's 2 or 3 years ago, so this isn't particularly updated for 2020. Then is it? And there's lots of ones. I'm not gonna read through all that. So I'm gonna go with yes, but only if there's undeniable evidence. And I would think, I mean, this is should. I would think this would be a very rare case. Very rare. You know, all things, most of the time we would be able to work with the foreign country. I'm going to go with less important. I'm also not too certain on this. Should the government increase or decrease military spending? It should be decreased from where we currently are. That would be more important. Should the U.S. accept refugees from Syria? So I don't know if the U.S. is a very good country for accepting refugees compared to other countries. So there's gonna be lots of other surrounding countries that are gonna be physically closer. Not only that, but I feel like the United States would be really expensive for accepting refugees. You could get more refugees if you were to put the same amount of money that the US would put into it, but in another country. So there's a high sort of baseline cost of living in America compared to a lot of other countries in the world, and something like having a car that's really necessary. If you don't have a car, then you're in a city where you can take buses and stuff, and that's also going to be expensive. So, I mean, like, I say yes, but well, I say no, but we should still support. So I don't see a good answer. I'm gonna go with no, and this is something that's less important to me. Should foreign terrorism suspects be given constitutional rights? Constitutional rights are for people in America, so I'm gonna go with no. What did I click on? Okay. Oh, I clicked on more stances up here. Okay. Well, you don't have to be a U.S. citizen to have constitutional rights, but which is what this is saying. If you're just in America, I think there's Supreme Court cases on this that constitutional rights extend to far more than just U.S. citizens. Well, I mean, okay, there's like some of them I think they should be, but in general, uh, no. Oh, okay, so this is talking about well, like Guantanamo Bay stuff. They shouldn't be like indefinitely detained. They shouldn't be let's just say yes. This is less important to me. Should the military be allowed to use enhanced interrogation techniques such as waterboarding? No, this doesn't work. Yeah, it's an effect. If torture worked, I would say yeah, do it, but it doesn't work. A lot of people say, a lot of people would be along this version or along like it's inhumane, unethical, or both versions. Um, if it worked, I would think use it in certain circumstances, but it doesn't work at all. So don't use it. It's just, it's needlessly inhumane. Compared to a lot of other issues, this would be less important to me. No, they should. Every 18-year-old should not be required to provide military service. Um, I mean, I'm gonna leave this as somewhat. This I don't think this is. Are there that many people discussing this? Should the U.S. remain in the United Nations? Yes. Oh, there's. Oh, I can click more questions. Okay. Should the U.S. increase or decrease foreign aid spending? I don't know if we need to increase the spending or decrease the spending. I'm actually not going to answer this one. I know we spend a small amount. I'm pretty sure it's less. It's either less. It's either about slash less than 1% of our total spending, or of our discretionary spending. I forget which it is. But it saves more money, and I think we uh, I think we would probably be able to save more money by giving more, but I don't know because I've seen figures on how much money it's estimated to save us, and the ratio is so high. I can imagine that the marginal rate, that is the rate of the next dollar spent. So if we spent one more dollar, how much more would we save? I imagine we would save more than $1, but I don't know this, and I haven't seen in-depth stats for this thing ever specifically. And what I have seen has been a while, so I'm gonna skip this question. Okay, I'm not gonna click on. I'm not gonna do these other ones either. Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent climate change? Absolutely. Provide more incentives. They should. Okay, this one is more important. Not exactly most important. I would go with more important. Should the U.S. withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement? No. Should disposable products that contain less than 50% of biodegradable material be banned, such as plastic cups, plates, and cutlery? I've never been asked this specific question before. I would think you should have a certain amount of biodegradable material, or if it's not, but you could also have something that's recyclable. Oh, but is it not considered disposable if it's recyclable? Hmm. But also, well, the problem with recyclables, a lot of people don't recycle it, and if it just goes into the trash, then if it's not biodegradable, that's still problematic. If something's biodegradable, well, it doesn't matter if it goes into the trash, it will still biodegrade. It may take longer than if you were to do other methods of biodegrading it, but even just throwing it in the trash or something will still be fine, ultimately speaking. I'm going to go with the yes on this one. Somewhat important. Should the government increase spending on public transportation? So I'm thinking yes. Let me see what else we have. Provide more free public transportation? Only if it goes towards an environmentally friendly solution. Well, I mean, basically any public transportation is going to be environmentally friendly. Like buses are environmentally friendly. A bus will be worse for the environment than one car, but it's not replacing one car, it's replacing many cars. So it's better than those many cars being used. So I'm guessing this is talking about national government. I don't actually know what role the federal government has on public transportation exactly. I know I have there's a lot of local places, local cities, states that will be involved in public transportation. I'm gonna go with in general. I think we need more public transportation options, so the government could increase spending on that. Um, I'm gonna keep this at somewhat important. Should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing guns? Yes, you need a background check, and you also need certification. I think psychological testing and training. That sounds pretty good. That would just be somewhat important. Should teachers be allowed to carry guns at school? I think no. If it said yes, but only someone who's like a professional or something, like I had a teacher who was also in the National Guard, so surely they'd been in it for like 20 years, so surely they knew how to use a gun. Like I wouldn't care if that teacher was armed, you know. That would with the level of training they have, that would be beneficial. I would imagine. There are cons to having a gun, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be on their body, and no one would necessarily, like, students wouldn't have to necessarily know, which is where potential negatives could come from. But with these options here, I'm just gonna say no. This is not very important to me. Should victims of gun violence be allowed to sue firearms dealers and manufacturers? So this says violence, so I'm not assuming this is not referring at all into something like a gun that has a problem that it will fire when you drop it. I forget which gun that was, but there was a gun that did that originally, that when you dropped it, sometimes it would go off. So it's not talking about anything that's a manufacturing problem. There's no reason why the firearms dealers and manufacturers. Oh, dealers. Well, if they don't. Okay, so a manufacturer wouldn't have any. Shouldn't have any responsibility there. A dealer could if they are breaking the law in some regard. But yeah, I could see yes, but only dealers. But we need to change the law, so I'm just gonna go with no for now. But the laws need to be changed. Um, and like okay, yes, but only dealers if they broke the law. You know, only for something that is against the law, which you may be thinking, well, couldn't they have a criminal investigation rather than a civil suit, rather than being sued? Well, they can have both. So they could face legal repercussions and also financial repercussions from being sued. But it's potential that if it seems very likely that they broke the law, or pretty likely that they broke the law, that may not be enough for criminal charges, but it could be enough for civil charges. So I'm gonna go with yes, but only dealers. Let me see. Yeah, I mean this is close enough. Yes, but only dealers. This is not that important to me. Should we build a wall along the southern border? We already have a wall. Yes, and Mexico should pay for it. High-tech surveillance, costly and ineffective. I'm just gonna go with no. This is not that important to me. Should illegal immigrants have access to government-subsidized healthcare? Yes, if they pay taxes, which illegal immigrants can do that. They can apply for a TIN, a tax identification number, from the Social Security Administration and pay taxes on their income, even if they're an illegal immigrant. I don't know if we should or not. I'm just gonna skip this question. Should illegal like the way this is like I don't does this mean like we give them free healthcare? What does government subsidized mean? You know? I'm not sure where exactly subsidies are. I'm sure it depends on state by state and county by county. Should I'm leaning towards yes. I'm leaning towards yes, or maybe one of these other yeses, but I don't know, so I'm just going to skip it. Should illegal immigrants be offered in-state tuition rates at public colleges within their residing state? Interesting. Well, I feel like the whole in-state, out-of-state thing is kind of dumb in the first place. So like they should be, but like I think you should be able to go to any state and get in-state tuition. This is not that important to me. The U.S. raised taxes on the rich? Yes, this is more important. Should we raise the federal minimum wage? Yes. Well, maybe there's a dollar amount, so let me look at other stances. There's not. Adjusted every year according to inflation. Isn't. I mean, I think you could. I don't know if it should be adjusted according to inflation. There's a lot of confounding factors at play. Yes, and make it a living wage. It should at least be a living wage. I'm just gonna stick with yes because I believe on these sorts of things, if you go with the main results, you get better information out of it. So it should be a living wage, but I don't know. Maybe, okay, I'll click this. Should the U.S. raise or lower the tax rate for corporations? Definitely raise it. It was at 21%. Or sorry, it was at 35%. It was lowered to 21. I think if we keep it at 21, but we get rid of tons of loopholes, that may actually be fine. But I think probably we need to get rid of most of the loopholes and raise the rates. And by get rid of most and not all of the loopholes, there's like natural things for reducing your tax liability that I think should still be allowed. So mostly when I'm thinking reducing tax liability shouldn't be allowed is doing Irish double sandwich or whatever these things are called, where you're stowing the money away offshores, right? But something like if you're wanting, like if you make money and then you reinvest it, or if you lost money 1 year and then you made money 1 year, so you cancel that out, those things should be kept in. Amazon gets a lot of flack from not paying taxes, even though they're making money, because what it is that they weren't making money for a long time. They were losing money, and now that they're making money, they're claiming those losses against their earnings now. This is more important to me. Should the government continue to fund Planned Parenthood? Yes, and they do much more than abortions. Somewhat important. What is your stance on abortion? Pro-choice, for the most part. So, like, this is more specific and more accurate to me. You should provide birth control, sex education, and more social services, which will reduce the number of abortions and reduce the number of unwanted pregnancies. This is somewhat important to me. Should health insurance providers be required to offer free birth control? We should have just like universal health care with free birth control. Doesn't even talk about that, so I'm just gonna skip it. Let me look at what more social ones are. Should gender identity be added to anti-discrimination laws? We just had a Supreme Court case on this. This is no longer relevant. And it's going to... It was a Supreme Court case that you cannot fire someone based on their gender identity. So this is just the first case, but you wouldn't be able to kick someone out for being transgender too, based off of this precedent that it's going to set. Should a business be able to deny service to a customer if the request conflicts with the owner's religious beliefs? I think it depends. I think if you're like an individual single person doing something, yes. But a small business, I don't know. That's vague. I think a lot of times small business refers to, you'll see like 15 or fewer employees, 50 or fewer employees, not just a single person. Like, let's say you're a freelance artist, and you don't want to draw a gay couple kissing. Well, there may be tons of reasons for that. One of them may be religious beliefs. And I feel like if you are an individual freelancer, you should be allowed to do that. But I don't know if anything larger than that should be allowed to. There's not really a good thing for that, so I'm going to skip it. Small businesses doesn't really fit into that category. Should they have the same adoption rights as straight couples? Essentially, yes. Should the Electoral College be abolished? Yes, and switch to a ranked voting system, switch to a representative democracy popular vote system. Balance of the votes, no, but balance of votes by population should be updated. All these other things. So, before some piece of legislation passed in the, I think, early 1900s, we kept getting more and more House members. And there was something that put like a limit on it. So it's going to be at 438 or 435 House members until any piece of legislation goes to change it. I think we should have more. And if we had more, then the discrepant, like if we had 1,000 or 1,500 or something, then the effect would be minimal on it. And so part of the reason why it's hard for me to just say yes on this is that this is like different states came together agreeing to this, and that it would, this would be the law. And if they didn't want it, well, then they wouldn't have joined, and they would just be their own. Which, by the way, I think it's really cool that we got, like, everyone basically wanted to join the U.S. in the mostly English-speaking parts. We didn't have any state that's like, nah, we'll be our own. There was Texas that was the Lone Star, had its own country for like a year or two, but I believe at the time they were still wanting to be part of the U.S. I want to say it just wasn't accepted at first, and so they formed their own country, but then later got accepted into the U.S. A ranked vote, well, not. I don't think necessarily we need a ranked voting system. There's a lot of voting systems that are better. So I'm just gonna go with yes. Should a photo ID be required to vote? So with the photo ID, laws, they the thing is, like, voter fraud, when we look at studies on them, it virtually does not exist on individual levels where people are trying to vote multiple times or vote for people who they aren't. Where voter fraud does exist is uh, manipulation of elections by, or manipulations of votes cast through not counting votes. Other election integrity issues include gerrymandering, vote security from hacking. I don't think photo ID should be required, but this is something that's less important to me. It ultimately affects not that many people. Should foreigners currently residing in the U.S. have the right to vote? No. They should, like, I mean, maybe after some amount of years, but whatever amount of years you think it would be fine for them to vote would be I would rather phrase it as that's the amount when they can become a citizen. I'm just gonna leave that as no. This is less important. Should actually, I don't know. I'll leave it at somewhat. Should political candidates be? I think I clicked on more. I don't. Should the minimum voting age be lowered? That's interesting. Okay. Do you support the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act? No, I support a single payer system. Okay, well, yes, but a single payer system is the same thing. Okay. This would be more important to me. Should the federal government increase funding of healthcare for low-income individuals? Single payer system. Do you support a single payer system? Yes. Do you support increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce interest rates for student loans? Okay, this is a weird sort of... oh man, I'm blanking on the word. You're earmarking. This is a weird way. This is a weird question because it earmarks specifically increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce interest rates for student loans. I feel like a largely free education should be made, not 100%, because I think you could make something like, okay, so you could make the first 2 years of college roughly, let's say, free, and then you could make the rest of it mostly free, but then you'd have potential for scholarships and whatnot. And I feel like, as someone who's been to college, that motivation is sort of needed. If it's like, because just, getting a higher GPA so you can get a better job or get paid more is further away in the future. You don't feel it as much as, I'll have to pay $1,000 if I don't get any scholarship next year. And it'll be much closer. And in general, people like, delayed satisfaction or delayed gratification is not something animals are good at, humans included. So, for the most part, though, yes, a free college education. This is more important to me. Should the federal government pay for tuition at four-year colleges and universities? Partial tuition's not how I would phrase it. I would say I'm closer to yes. Should they fund universal preschool? Oh, I didn't mean to. So, on this, something like four-year colleges and universities versus universal preschool. Universal preschool is way more important. Dollar for dollar, you get way more bang for your buck in universal preschool, daycare, and other early childhood education programs, especially under the age of 5. And this is because children's development matters less and less every year. What happened prior matters the most. Like, the very first year between year 0 and year 1 is the most important year in development. Between year 1 and 2, second most important. Between year 2 and 3, third most important. Just hearing words and observing as an infant does, uh, before they're even able to talk, they're absorbing information, and that sort of stuff is important. Um, Now, I think starting around age 2 or 3, there's maybe additional um, importance added because that's when they first start to socialize, and being good at socializing is valuable. And if you don't get it right then, you'll be caught behind, and you can be stuck behind forever and never uh, become a good socializer. But certainly anything up to the age of 5 and below is very, very important, much more important than college. If you think of someone that enters kindergarten and they're a really smart kindergartner, they're reading at a second grade. They're reading second grade level books in kindergarten. They can read well. They can write well. They can do math well at that age. Those people are gonna be a lot better throughout the rest of their educational life and the rest of their life as well. You know, I when I came into kindergarten, um, I was like the second best reader in the class. At least, well, not when I came into, but in kindergarten we had like an AR reading system. Uh, The R may have stood for reading, for all I know. I don't remember what it stood for, but we could read books and then we would take quizzes about them, which was basically testing your ability to understand what you were reading and remember what it was that you read about. So it would ask you uh, like 5 or 10 questions about a book that you read on a quiz on a computer. And I think a lot of places may still do this today in elementary school, but I was in my class of like, I don't know how many, 15 people there are. There was a girl named, I want to say Kelsey, that was better than me, and I was second best. So I was second out of 15 at reading. So you could say I was pretty good. I was like uh, around 10th percentile, roughly speaking. I'm still pretty good today, all things considered. And that's an anecdote, but uh, that is the case. I'll also bring in that whatever. So IQ is not perfect. There certainly has flaws. Almost everything has flaws. Um, but it is a very predictive tool. And starting from, I think, around the age of 5 or 6, your IQ becomes pretty stable. I think before then, it's between like the ages of 2 and 3 is when or 3 or so, is when you first can even feasibly attempt an IQ test with someone, and then but anyways, once you get up to the age of 5 or 6, it starts to get stable for the most part. So there's things that are not measured by IQ, of course, but for the things that are measured by it, whatever social upbringing impact it has is going to be within those first 5 years of life, and also um, your how healthy your parents were during pregnancy. So there, like, sperm healthiness is a thing, and then also more importantly, how healthy the woman is during pregnancy as well can lead to uh, whatever social factors there are before that age is going to be whatever social factors exist are going to largely be from before the age of 5. And so it's really important, if we can make people smart or set them on the right track, they can stay there. They can stay on the right track. So I've gone on a long rant now. But absolutely, the federal government should fund universal preschool. They should fund universal daycare. Um, there needs to be new systems put into place. Like people that are infants 1, 2. You know, we have hardly anything for before kindergarten right now. We need to put that to the max. If we were to entirely uh, defund whatever we have towards college and put it towards these sorts of programs, I'd probably think that would be a better situation than the current one. Now, we can have both. I'm not saying you have to do that, but just to juxtapose, which one I care about more. This is very important. Um, so this is yes, but it should come from states instead of the federal government, as long as parents have the option to send their child to a private school. I'm just going to say yes, and this is one of the most important things. I may put most for multiple things, but I'm certainly going to put it on this, just because of how important it is to set little kids on the right track in life, and something like preschool is pivotal for that. Do you support Common Core national standards? Honestly, I don't know. I've heard a lot of things about this, and I don't know enough about specifically what is good for childhood education. And I've certainly seen some individual things where I'm like, okay, that's a bit ridiculous. But a lot of what I've seen also seems good. So in general, I think yes. I also would say I support the concept, but not necessarily the current implementation. I don't know enough about the current implementation or how to evaluate that to say that, though. So this allows for state customization. It says national standards will improve our students. I'm gonna go with. I'm just gonna say yes on this. I'm really not sure more about that. Should the government decriminalize school truancy? Decriminalize? It's not. People don't really get in trouble for this already. It's not particularly a thing. I know people that basically didn't go to school at all in high school. Um, you don't get in legal trouble, and neither do your parents. My brother did the same thing. Um, I'm just gonna not answer this one. I don't know if it's not necessarily relevant. I don't know. Really, maybe there's got to be stuff I don't know about truancy for this to be a question. I'm thinking. Do I support charter schools? Not particularly. No. Yes, but only if they're nonprofit. Yes, but not at the expense of funding public schools. Yes, and our entire education system should be privatized. No, and education should not be privatized. No, we should focus on improving our public schools and increasing teacher wages instead. So the thing with charter schools is, in general, they're worse than public schools. In general, they're worse. You have certain charter schools that have done well though, and are comparable to some of the top public schools. So I think though, because you can still get that same performance from a public school, but the average is better. I think in general, no. I could see I could see potentially allowing very heavily regulated charter schools. Do I support the use of nuclear energy? Yes. But with public subsidy and nationalize the industry, as long as there is no public subsidy, temporarily while we increase investment into cleaner, renewable alternatives. Something. No, we should invest in cleaner alternatives such as wind, hydroelectric, thorium, and geothermal. I'm just going to leave it as yes. We currently have nuclear energy. We haven't had new reactors in a while, though. I think we should have those. Oh, by safety measures, so far nuclear energy is the safest. out of any sort of energy we can just create that might not be like hydroelectric and wind and stuff. I want to say those are actually somehow still more dangerous. I'm not 100% certain. Anyways, if we're comparing it to stuff like coal and oil, it certainly is safer so far. I say so far because there's still like current risk from past nuclear reactors being used, you know, and that's even including tragedies like in Russia or in Japan. Should the government require children to be vaccinated for preventable diseases? For almost all people, yes. Well, I mean, I think if I answer yes, of course, if someone's allergic, then, or if they have some sort of immunosuppression such that the vaccines themselves can pose danger to them, then of course not them. Yes, but only for deadly contagious diseases. Oh, I mean, like, do they need to be? Do they have to be vaccinated for the flu? I don't know. I'm just gonna say yes, and not get more specific than that. Should producers be required to label genetically engineered foods? I say no because I feel like that would there's only so much you can do on packaging, and I think there's a lot of other things I want to put on packaging first with regards to the health and safety of foods. Also, something being a GMO or not, like we've been doing GMOs for thousands of years by selectively breeding. The only difference now is, so, this is specifically referring to where we will take genes from certain crops we find and insert them into the crop to basically take selective breeding to a whole new level. It's like, oh, we've got these different crops. We like all these properties in these genes, these properties in these genes, and you add them all into one, right? Roughly how it goes. But there'd be it's something being a GMO is not a bad thing, and I feel like it would cause unnecessary hysteria. I'm gonna go with no. This is not really important. Should convicted criminals have the right to vote? Yes. No, drugs should be illegal. Support mandatory minimum prison sentences for people charged with drug possession? No, I don't want it at all. That's not an option? What the? I'm just gonna go with no. Should prisons ban the use of solitary confinement for juveniles? Yes. It is severely psychologically damaging. Are you currently experiencing COVID-19 systems? So this is updated. Okay, it's just not updated within the last week or two whenever we had that Supreme Court case. Or maybe they'll still keep that question in. But I feel like it's something that's like it's already settled. It's, Are you currently experiencing COVID-19 systems? This is weird. I'm not. I mean, you could say like, oh, I have a sneeze, but I sneeze every day of every year. So. Oh, they got my zip code here, huh? That's interesting. If the 2020 Kentucky District 4 U.S. House of Representative election were held today, which candidate would you vote for? I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't seen who's running yet. I haven't checked on that yet. For the election, oh, they don't. They say for the U.S. Senate, they say Mitch McConnell, Charles Booker. They don't even have Amy McGrath listed. They still don't have Amy McGrath listed. Wow, the results haven't come out on yet, have they? Kentucky Senate primary results. It says they have 14%. This has, at this percent of reporting, with 14.7% of precincts reporting, that is virtually a tie. It's within 1%. They're both in the 42 something percentile. So that's interesting that they don't have Amy McGrath. So someone hasn't put that in there yet. I would go with Charles Booker. Yeah, this was whoever I like. I've seen these names. One of them's the Republican, one of them's the Democrat. It didn't appear. I didn't have to. I actually just voted like 4 days ago, and when I was looking this up, when I looked up my sample ballot, there wasn't information on who was running for my House seat. I'm like, why is there not? So I looked into the filings or whatever, and there's only one. So these people just win by default because no one they're running on a post. And you have to if you want to run as a write-in, you have to apply to run as a write-in. So no one even applied for that. So this is literally the only person you could vote for in the respective Republican and Democratic races. I don't know which one's which. If the presidential election were held today, so this is between Biden and Trump, and then these other ones. So, like I mean, I'd really want Bernie Sanders to be the president, but ultimately it's going to be between Biden and Trump, wherever he is, and certainly Biden's better than Trump. Which qualities are most important to you in a candidate? Common sense, accountability, leadership, morality, effectiveness, intelligence, commitment, vision, determination, consistency, communication, integrity, honesty, transparency. Oh, let me undo that. Oh, well, now there's tons of things. I'm just going to skip this one. Okay. Let me see my results. Analyzing voting records. Analyzing campaign finance data. Analyzing speeches, debates, and public statements. Matching similarity of your answers. Prioritizing your importance of issues. Done. There's a lot of things that wasn't really put on there. So, Democratic, Green, Socialist, Peace and Freedom, Transhumanist are all about 90%. And then 18% Libertarian, not really at all Republican or Constitution. Who are these people? Are these... What is this? I can't, this icon's too small. I can't tell what that's saying, honestly. That's socialist. Okay. I thought it was going to compare me to different candidates and whatnot. This is a bit disappointing, honestly. Oh well. You can also see how similar these parties are under this ballot from this thing, but a lot of things it didn't really go that into. So it didn't go into like getting money out of politics, getting big money out of politics. It didn't ask about like election vouchers dollars. I forget the exact name, but freedom vouchers. I think one presidential candidate called them in the Democratic primary. You get $100 that you can donate to campaigns essentially, and that's the only way they can get funded. So that way people get to sort of do preliminary votes with money in an equal sense to everyone else. Of course, some people would still have more influence. Like influencers, like people on Instagram. Um, you know, uh, Local pastors will have more influence. Big YouTubers will have more influence. Yada yada. It didn't ask about how much the minimum wage should be increased. Like some people think it should just be 10 or 12. Some people think it should be 15. Some people think it should be 20. You know? That's a huge difference. Like right now, it's 725. You know, if you're looking at increasing it to 10 or increasing it to 20, increasing it to 10 is much more similar to keeping it the same than increasing it to 20 is. Lots of stuff they didn't ask about. Hmm. Well, I'll call that it. This was a bit of a disappointing result, but I think more important for if you're watching this is, watching me fill out my answers and what I said to them than just seeing that it says, oh, I'm these 5 parties are all the same under this ballot, which it doesn't go particularly in depth or differentiating them. Thank you. Goodbye.